like legitimate Islamic jurisprudence, scholastic conversations around what's the best way to kill your gay.
Dear Muslim friends, if you've ever condemned Islamophobia on Twitter, today is the day to speak out and loudly and also condemn homophobia. Couldn't agree more. I too have noticed this disgusting trend even within the LGBT community. Everybody wants to be politically correct and nobody wants to call out issues within religions against gay people because they're afraid of being called Islamophobic. But I barely see anybody calling out the homophobia, the biphobia, the transphobia within the Muslim and Islam religion. And trust me, yes, it is actually homophobic.
And really they have varying opinions. You have 7 countries that apply the extreme interpretation of Sharia, including Saudi Arabia, where it is a punishable, basically, offense by the capital punishment execution, if the person is caught, of course, but you have to have witnesses that can provide that.
Recently on Drag Race, we saw one of the contestants wear a hijab as part of his act, and when Jeff Goldblum called him out and said this,
"Is there something in that religion that is anti-homosexuality and anti-woman?"
It's a complex issue. I have my own misgivings about the way that LGBT people are treated in the Middle East. And at the same time, I am one.
He got attacked. He got absolutely attacked by the left. And I know many people that are gonna watch this video that are on the left are gonna say, but the Muslims and the Islamic religion doesn't believe that, or not every Muslim or not every Islamic person believes what the Muslim religion is teaching them. And I know that, obviously. But what is it like being a gay Muslim or being gay in an Islamic country? I just happen to have found one who's willing to tell his story. Here he goes. Keep in mind we are continuing the conversation about being LGBT and Muslim or of Islamic faith over on my slug.com page. It's a website that prides themselves on the fact that they are in fact pro-free speech. We have a little group over there. Go to slug.com/Ariel and get involved in this conversation. There's only a few hundred of you or so I answer every single thing you guys post.
My name is Jimmy Bangash. I am, like you said, actually somebody who used to be Muslim and isn't anymore at the moment. So the term that I use actually, and many of us use, is ex-Muslim, because we used to be Muslim, but we're not Muslim anymore. And I think that term is quite a politicized term, actually. The reason that people say ex-Muslim, and often you won't hear people say ex-Christian, for example, or ex-Hindu, is because there's some severe ramifications for leaving Islam. Often you'll lose your whole family. If you're in a number of countries, like 10 plus countries, if you say that you're not Muslim anymore, you can end up either being imprisoned or some countries have the death sentence, legal punishment for that. Yeah. Interestingly enough, those same countries have the similar death sentence for being gay and various imprisonment in other countries for being gay. And these are all in Muslim majority countries that we find them. So me, like a number of other people, have left Islam, said, actually, you know what, this ideology doesn't make sense. Different reasons for different people, actually. Like either logically it doesn't make sense, scientifically it doesn't make sense. Some people find it really misogynistic. Other people like myself find it all of those things, but also really homophobic as well. And we're like, enough, this doesn't make sense. And we need to start looking at it in a critical way and calling out the homophobia that exists in that religion and looking for data. So as you start placing these ideas under scrutiny and looking at the data, you start to realize it's just not true. I can't scream homophobia at everything. I can't scream white supremacy at everything. Right. It's not the truth, and we have to look at the facts. And so I work for 2 organizations, really. So one of them is the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, which represents ex-Muslims in the UK. And then the second one is an organization called Free Hearts, Free Minds, where I work as the lead psychotherapist, and I provide mental health support to people who are still in Muslim countries who aren't Muslim but can't declare it and aren't able to get mental health support. And so then we meet over Skype and we do psychotherapy that way.
In the beginning of this video, I mentioned the whole situation with Drag Race and how one of the drag queens on that show came out with the hijab and was supposedly being, pro-Muslim. I happen to think, and a lot of gay people thought it was strange that drag queen was promoting a religion that was homophobic and sexist and transphobic and all these things. But at the same time, Jeff Goldblum, who was a judge on that show, got a lot of hate for criticizing, that drag queen. And I think all he said was something like, "Isn't that religion homophobic?" There was a shitstorm thrown at him for that. Why do you think that's happening right now, especially in Western countries?
Why did we have this almost let's cancel Jeff Goldblum response, which occurred, from the left. So maybe let me put that on my left-hand side. So why did we respond that way? But also, what do I think about the idea of a drag queen dressing up in Muslim attire? Yeah. So maybe they're two separate things.
Yes.
So let's go with the Jeff thing. I think it comes from a noble place, actually, Ariel. Like, it is like Muslims are a minority. They're often seen as an ethnic minority, even though Islam isn't a religion and we have white Muslims anyway.
Right.
But these two things like race and religion are conflated, and Muslim is seen as an ethnicity somehow, or some ethnic group. So often you'll get people called racist if they're criticizing a religion, which makes no sense. Here's a minority group. We don't want people picking on a minority. We know that when public opinion can turn to otherizing or objectifying a minority, violence can ensue. A minority group is much more vulnerable to violence because simply they don't have the numbers to defend themselves. Yeah. So I think it comes from this place of trying to protect them. But what goes hand in hand with that is also, a complete lack of critical thinking. It's like, we've got to protect these people no matter what. Almost as if Muslim people are too fragile to explore or have criticism of their religion in the way that maybe Christianity has been criticized. And we know that actually the trajectory of gay rights in the West is completely aligned to criticism of Christianity and criticism of religion, right? As we start looking at people liberating themselves from orthodox Christian scripture, gays are able to emancipate themselves and step into their right. Whilst it comes from this noble place of trying to protect Muslim people by calling Jeff a racist or an Islamophobe, actually what you're doing is you're stopping the progress of gay rights in Muslim community. Because we live in a really, the world has never been this small, right? Like, we're so interconnected. What I say on this video will influence people in Pakistan. Somebody will watch it there and it will have an impact. And we've never lived in a world like that. So it's not only internal scrutiny that's important, it's also external scrutiny that's important. And sometimes, and I'd argue this is the case with the Muslim community actually, our community isn't really moving fast enough on gay rights. I think that RuPaul summed this up the best. She said, as Jeff said, I might be stupid, but is there something anti-gay or anti-women about this religion? And it was very much stream of consciousness. He was just kind of like trying to compile his thoughts and was letting them come out of his mouth at the same time. He wasn't reading off a piece of paper. He hadn't deliberately composed this question beforehand. It just kind of was this stream of consciousness, and he articulated it. So we have to think about what RuPaul said, which is that drag shakes the tree. Drag is an art form from the LGBT community. It shakes the tree. It makes people ask questions. It provokes. It challenges. It stimulates. All of the beautiful things that you expect art to do is exactly what drag does. That's all that Jeff did, was he responded to an artist by asking a question that was provoked by the artist and their attire. What we're saying is, the question you asked that was provoked by the art is racist, and it's not okay for you to ask that question. And we have to get our head around the absurdity of that and how much of thought policing and how Orwellian that is.
My question is, a lot of people on the far left of Islam, being a Muslim is not inherently homophobic. Is that true?
Orthodox Christianity, Orthodox Judaism, and Islam, they're all the same in terms of Abrahamic faith is homophobic. It's not down with gay people. It doesn't give any recourse to two men or two women who are in love with each other to have some kind of legitimate relationship. The difference is, if we look at things like Christianity and Judaism and how far they've progressed in terms of accommodating and accepting gay people, we see a huge trajectory. So, you have Tel Aviv Pride is a massive thing, right? Like all the gays flying to Jerusalem going to Israel to attend Tel Aviv Pride. All of the countries across the West, like Canada, the UK, all of Europe, you
Most
see
of them
gay
have
pride events.
Christian Catholic, upbringing.
Yeah.
Right?
And at the same time, they have gay pride events now, right? Like where you march down the streets waving a rainbow flag. If we then compare that to all of the countries in the world that have the death sentence for gay people are Muslim majority countries. What I'm saying to you is, historically, all of these Abrahamic faiths were really homophobic, but two of them seem to have, got on the gay rights horse and kind of galloped forward a bit. Right. And one of them doesn't seem particularly interested in making this movement. So we can measure that by looking at the data. So all of the countries that have the death sentence. I think there's about 13 of them are Muslim majority countries. Fairly recently, we saw Brunei say, you know what, we feel a bit left out because we're not allowed to kill gay people. So we're going to implement the death sentence for gay people as well, right? And we saw a massive backlash towards that from the West, yeah? Fortunately, no one screamed Islamophobia at that, but and for some reason that critique was allowed against Brunei. So where there isn't a death sentence and a country seeks to impose that and legislate it, that country, surprise, surprise, was a Muslim country. Again, when we look at the data, like objectively speaking, we can see that the most homophobic religion is Islam. When we look at countries where, even in the UK, where we have diaspora communities, and we look at actually what is the most homophobic religious group in the UK, it's Muslim people. And just to give you an awareness of how bad that is, of the people polled, there was a poll done by a statisticians company. 52% of British Muslims said that homosexuality should be criminalized. And Ariel, wherever we go with homophobia, misogyny is usually quite linked. So 49% of British Muslim people polled said that wives should be obedient to their husbands.
Obedience is like, it's like an animal. It's like, ugh,
yeah,
a dog.
yeah,
Like,
or a child as well.
you know?
Yeah.
There's also a difference between being homophobic and being aggressive about it and being and demonizing, right? Like some people are just homophobic because they don't understand it. They're weirded out by it for whatever reason. That doesn't bother me as much as somebody that, as a community that's taught to berate and literally kill for it. You know, that's the big difference.
You know, we have to be really honest about it, because so often what we do is we run around asking these questions is violence, asking these questions is racist. And actually, no, what you're doing is you're treating Muslim community like they're children and they can't handle scrutiny. And it's not okay, actually. We have to act like we're dealing with adults, hold them to the same standard that you're holding non-Muslims, white people, black people, whatever it is. For Sunni Muslims, the Hadith, yeah? And most of the world is Sunni Muslims. Most of them follow the Hadith. And, you know, that we have Hadith saying that actually, if you find gay men, whether they're active or passive, kill them both, yeah? If you could catch them doing the act. Other Hadith saying throw them off the building. And then you have Ariel scholastic debate, like legitimate Islamic jurisprudence, scholastic conversations around what's the best way to kill your gay, to make God happy. Like in Iran, they hang them. Is that the best way? Is it better to stone them to death, maybe that you would see in Pakistan or Afghanistan? Decapitation, maybe like you would see in Saudi. You know, what's the best way to kill a gay person that keeps God happy the most? So trying to pretend that this isn't homophobia, that there isn't something intrinsically homophobic in Islam, you know, that's really quite disingenuous. But one of the things that we believe in Islam is it has to stay the same for all time. It's not something, you know, we're taught that actually this religion, it came to us, it was perfect. And Muhammad said this religion is perfect. So therefore it must never be changed, because then you're going to make it imperfect. When we see these movements of trying to, you know, move it forward in terms of gay rights, it's positioned as a corruption from the West trying to dilute Islam. Neo-colonialism, you know, that's a favorite, right? Like it's colonialist trying to make Islam gay. Or from gay people, they'll say things like it's homo-nationalist. All of these really weird and wonderful terms. Anything to say Islam hates gays and wants them dead, which is the fact of the matter.
Okay, so we have some questions for you. Are you an ex-Muslim because you're gay, or did you have issues with the religion before you realized you were gay?
So the first thing when I was younger was I grew up in a house with a mum and dad, 2 older sisters and 4 older brothers, and I was the youngest kid. And really early on, I was like, wow, like the girls in our house, they can't do anything compared to the boys, yeah? Like it became so apparent how my mum and my sister were treated differently to me and my brothers. So that sparked the questions at the start. It was just that abject misogyny. 11, started realizing, crikey, there's something else going on with me. I don't seem to be into girls in the same way that the other guys are into girls. Just want to hang out with them and wish I could paint my nails too. As that manifested more, I actually went deeper into the religion to try and become more religious, hoping that God would, you know, take this away if I prayed more, if I went away with the mosque on weekends, then, you know, God would favor me and take this test away. Because it's sold to us as a test from God. You being gay It's just a test from God. You might have it for the rest of your life.
Does your family support you? Do they kind of understand where you are now? Are they still super religious and don't accept you at all?
So that's the saddest story. But it's interesting, like I think, you know, working as a psychotherapist, you go through so much psychotherapy yourself, right? It doesn't impact me as sad as it would have done maybe like 3-4 years ago, right? They don't is the short answer. So I think it was bad enough that I was gay. Like that was bad enough, and I got disowned for about 10 years for being gay. And then one of my brothers died, and I went back home at about 33. Got disowned about 23, went back home about 33 when my brother passed away. We tried to kind of rekindle some sort of relationship. It didn't really work. I became quite vocal about this religion. And I think that really compounded, you know, it's bad enough that you're gay, but now you're also saying Islam is BS.
Right. So that was like
there's this
double negative for them.
Yeah. So this is you know, and a lot of ex-Muslims use the same vernacular as gay people. So when you meet an ex-Muslim, if we meet each other, we'll ask each other, oh, are you out? Or ex-Muslim will talk about their coming out to their family. So there's a very similar sort of experience there in terms of, you know, this secrecy, hiding the double life. So many ex-Muslims are walking around with a headscarf on, pretending that they're Muslim in front of their family, pretending to fast during Ramadan. And I'm not one for pretense. I guess I was like really quite straightforward about this religion is nonsense. It's really harmful to people. It is particularly harmful to women and gays. And here's how, and we need to start calling it out and highlighting the abysmal conduct in our community towards women and gay people, which is shaped by this religion. So that didn't go down well. I kind of talk to my mum now. My mum and I have a chat every now and then, but that's probably where it is limited to. I don't really have much interaction.
It's a very, very, very important video. And I think people are really going to enjoy this. If they don't, they'll at least share it. Yeah, I'm going to have both of the links, the not-for-profit that you work for. And
Free Hearts, Free Minds.
I'm going to have that and
the Council of Ex-Muslim of Britain. Both of these organizations are run on donations. So if people want to support our work, please do. And if anybody needs to get in touch with me, you can do that by contacting me at jimmybangash@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter and on Facebook as well. Often when we do these kind of talks, a lot of people reach out for psychotherapy work. So if they email at jimmybangash.com, they can do that as well. I just want to say thank you so much. Like, I've really been following your work, and it was why, you know, when I saw that I'm leaving the left video, I feel like you spoke out for so many of us who, just because we're gay, we're expected to be this far left wokey, regardless of what we might internally feel around this movement and what's going on. So, you know, just props for doing that. I really appreciate that. But also want to acknowledge you for all of the work you're doing around women and women's rights and sex-based rights for women. I think it's an extremely difficult conversation to have. And I think those of us who can do it should be having those conversations, because there's so many people who are fearful about just articulating what it is you're saying. So regardless of whether I agree with you or I disagree, the fact that you're having this conversation has to be allowed. Yeah. Similarly, for those of us in the ex-Muslim community, we can completely empathize with, you know, this forced silence that people are trying to put on you because dissenting voices are not appreciated. So I just wanted to salute you for the work you're doing around that.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Yeah.
Is everyone going to call me a transphobe now? Like, they're going to be like, he's a transphobe, racist.
No, they can't call you transphobic, because then you can go back and call them Islamophobic or ex-Islamophobic.
Oh, yes. Or racist.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. And remember that we are continuing this conversation over on my slug.com/Arielle page. Go sign up. It's completely free. It's a space for us to talk without afraid of being judged. Other than that, I will see you guys back here in a few days with a brand new video. Until then, I love you. Love yourselves.